Hello and welcome to part 2 of my lockdown special. My name's Andy and I make semi-useful videos on YouTube about Fiat Puntos and how to look after them. Unfortunately, if you saw part 1 of this series, you'll see that I'm not very good at looking after them, and my 2011 Fiat Punto Evo has not been very well looked after and is in a bit of a sorry state. If you've not seen this, click the little link that'll appear somewhere in the right top hand corner of the screen about now. To recap though, if you have seen this, this is the state of my Punto, covered in mud, full of junk and rubbish, and generally looking very sorry for itself. Before I can wash the car, I need to get rid of the roof bars. The roof bars are on there basically permanently because I use the car to transport bikes. The reason I use this car to transport bikes is because my other car doesn't actually even have a roof to put the bikes on. Because the racks are permanently on the roof itself is in a pretty poor state because it can't be cleaned very easily, so it gets a lot of mud and grime and things actually ground into it, so it looks terrible. Once removed, as you can see here, this is the sort of damage that the roof rack leaves behind on the paint, with lots of grit getting underneath the feet of the roof racks, and then they end up scratching and grinding into the paintwork. Once I've got the roof rack removed, I can however begin to wash the car. I started off with this super strong acid wheel cleaner, which I then with a paintbrush brushed into the wheels to get rid of any sort of stuck on stubborn dirt. After a little while and letting it work, I gave it a good rinse, and the wheels, which are pretty scabby anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about them, came out looking quite shiny. Once I'd done the wheels, it was time to tackle the bodywork. So here we've got the world's greatest pressure washer that I think cost about £25. We're sparing no expense with this cleanup. We have a top quality mop bucket. I found a dirty sponge. There is also a car cleaning brush and some car shampoo. Now, before all you car cleaning gurus out there start ranting at me for not using 2 buckets or for not having a clean sponge or whatever the case may be, this car's done 175,000 miles or thereabouts. It's not in the best of shape. The paint is already fairly tired. And yeah, I'm cleaning it up, but I'm not going to town on it. I'm not going to make it the world's greatest car without a major respray. I don't think it ever would be the world's greatest car. So instead, I'm just going to jet wash it down, get rid of all the loose bits of dirt and muck on it, first of all, before I then switch to the mop bucket. So initially I start out with the brush in my hand, but it's clear that it's got no use whatsoever, so I'll throw that back in the bucket. And we'll just basically go over the car with the sponge, getting rid of all the dirt that's stuck onto the paintwork. The brush does have its uses. Anywhere there's a panel gap, or a little crease in the bodywork, or anywhere there's a join in the panels, anything like that, it's quite good for getting in between those little gaps and creases and rubber seals and everything else to get all the dirt out from those little places. Once the car's soaked up, it's time to hit it with the pressure washer again, get all the soap off, and hopefully take all the dirt with it. You'll probably notice that there's lots of little tiny black marks on the front of the car in this shot. That's because the whole front of the car is mainly stone chips, hence why only a respray is really going to help this car's bodywork overall. I also took the opportunity to go around the underside of the bonnet and get rid of all the road salt that had built up underneath the bonnet and all over the parts of the engine. And then very carefully with the pressure washer I jet washed down large plastic parts, but being very careful to keep the water flow away from any electrical items. Just for reference, what sounds like a seagull being repeatedly kicked is the pressure washer cycling on and off as I'm using it. Now, through the wonders of video editing, I dried the car, and actually, in truth, what I did was dried the car and then realised I needed to clean under the bonnet and soaked it all again. So, anyway, at this point, what you should be doing is just drying the car off so that you don't end up with watermarks all over the bodywork and glass and everything else, which is what I've been doing here. I've got this blade type thing which takes the water off in sheets. And then I'm just going over with the chamois leather just to make sure I dry up any little drips and drops that the blade leaves behind. As you can see from the big smear across the bonnet, it works brilliantly. Next up, I broke out the clay bar because I wanted to try and get rid of some of the contaminants from the paintwork. This incredibly tedious process involves spraying the rapid detailer spray on, which sort of lubricates the paintwork, and then rubbing the clay repeatedly over the metalwork, and the clay then lifts all the contaminants out of the paint. Eventually the clay ends up looking like this, covered in grit and all sorts of muck. About 3 hours later, you end up with something that looks like this. It's definitely an impressive change given what it looked like to begin with. However, after all that work put into the outside, the inside still looked like this, which is a total mess. Covered in grit, covered in sand and dirt and wrappers and everything else. It's just a mess inside. The only problem is I was a bit bored of cleaning the car by this stage, so I thought I'll shut the door of the car and we'll come back tomorrow. The next day, and it looked even worse than it did the day before. There was just little bits of dirt and debris and dog hair everywhere. And here's the reason for all that dog hair: a 7-year-old Jack Russell cross belonging to my wife. We're going to have to bring out the big guns. There is nothing that Henry won't snort up. So, having forgot to film any of the actual hoovering, here's a shot of me holding a bottle of interior cleaning spray. Hopefully you know what hoovering looks like. Anyway, this spray, we spray it all over the interior of the car. It just helps get rid of all the dirt and grime that's ground into the plastic. You can also use it on fabrics, and it's very good at getting rid of little marks like this in the roof lining. Just spray it on, give it a good rub with a cloth, and that soon gets rid of those marks in the fabric. If you're still watching at this point, I am amazed. You are incredible. Just show how incredible you are by hitting the like button, hitting the thumbs up button, and also why not just leave a comment below telling us why you're still watching at this stage, because literally I'm just wiping some dust out of a car. In all probability you're waiting to see the finished result, which is coming up in just a second. So if you're ready, here is the finished article, looking much better than it did before. Everything is shining and gleaming. The sun shining through the windscreen makes it look about 10 times better. It is a massive transformation to where we started. That's not it though. We've cleaned the car, but now we need to start tidying it up. So do keep watching for the next video, where we'll probably tackle some of the cosmetic problems that this car has. For the time being, thank you for watching. If you haven't already done so, click the subscribe button below, and I will see you in the next video.